Well, it's council preview time, and I'm Tom Laux, Communications Director, City of Marshfield. Sitting next to me, our City Administrator, Steve Bark.
Great to be with you as always, Tom.
Exactly. Well, we have a council meeting coming up here. It is Wednesday. We always tape this the week before. Our council meeting takes place on Tuesday, 6 p.m., council chambers. Again, everybody's welcome as normal.
Yep, they are. We'd love to have people come to our meetings, or we'd love to have them viewing it in one of the various platforms that we have.
Exactly. Well, that's why we're bringing this to the public, so they better know what we're doing. All right, well, let's get right into this agenda. It's not real long, just let people know, so the show might be a little bit shorter, but we'll see.
And part of that, if you remember, ours was long last time. We had a lot of issues, and some of them, Tom, are now under consideration before being brought back. We talked about firearms at City Hall, chickens being allowable, possible meeting participation, can it be done remotely or not on the long term. Some of those are under advisement. They're being looked at by the city attorney and others, so you can look forward to those returning at some future date. All
right, we'll bring those on council preview, I'm sure, when they become on the next agenda. But for now, I kind of wanted to review what happened in our Public Works meeting on Monday, our finance meeting that happened last night. Let's start off with Public Works. These will be in consent. Generally, they go pretty fast, but I thought it'd be important to pull a few things out and talk about, just so people are aware of what's happened in those meetings. Let's talk about breaking ground, with that subdivision. Where are we at?
Well, we continue to move forward. The really big moment, or one of the really big moments, Tom, came back in early July when the Board of Public Works and the council approved the low bid with Earth Incorporated from ARPAN in terms of doing the work that we need for putting in the street, sewer, water, those kind of things. So that's moving full speed ahead. We believe it will take about 3 months to get the infrastructure in the ground out there in the area of Lincoln and Fifth. If people don't know where it is, it's sort of the southwest corner of that intersection. And 23 single-family lots. The goal continues to be, as far as I know, there hasn't been anything that's been disrupted, that by late October, the infrastructure will be in the ground and we'll be able to formally sell lots. We've been pre-selling lots, and I think the last I knew that Josh Miller had more than half of them pre-sold. If you're interested, and please call the Development Services Department if you are, you can find out more about how you can perhaps purchase one of those lots for yourself for a new home site. But really, by the end of October, we expect to be in a position where we're doing business.
Well, pretty exciting to see that starting to come to fruition, and people start seeing Earth being moved soon.
Yeah, and it's just one piece of our attempt to get more single-family housing in the community. We've been hearing that drumbeat for a while from the public and from realtors and others, but it's an important piece. It really kicks off the fact that we're going to see some new home starts going up in the next few years that we really need for our community. We need places for people who want to live and work here to be able to find homes.
All right, well, thanks for that update, Steve. Let's move on to, I just wanted to bring up that post office box. It was discussed, and it's really been working well. I just wanted to, since it was on the agenda, it won't come up in council. There's no reason probably to, but why not talk about it now?
Yeah, no, it's a really good thing, and I forget who came up with this idea originally, Tom, but there had been the thought that, it's kind of crazy over by the hospital, over by the post office sometimes. Right at that corner, people are trying to get in, get out, do business, and they have a drop box that they've had there. But really to try and alleviate some of the traffic pressure at that intersection, the idea came up, I think it was late in 2019 or early 2020. Why don't we put the drop box or a drop box over on the old Baltus property that the city now owns across the street on the north side of West 2nd Street. And that'll provide a perfect loop, if you can picture it, for those who've been out there. You loop in and loop back out onto 2nd Street. Very easy to do, very easy to drop your mail in without even getting out of your car. And we did it as a trial. We do a lot of things here as a trial. I think we've seen them in recent weeks, with the summer hours and some other things. But let's see if it works before we make it permanent. And it is working. There's no problems created. There's no accidents that are happening. And so our Public Works staff was recommending that it be made a permanent fixture, so to speak, and the board approved that. They feel it's a good thing for the citizens. We're trying to be as customer service friendly as it can, and if it doesn't cause any difficulties or hazards, we're in favor of it. That seems to be the case here.
All right, well, that helps probably our postal service as well, and just safety on the road there. You're off the road when you drop it in. just an easier way. So good, I'm glad that's going well, and just wanted to let the public know that it's here at this moment to stay, and it was good news to report.
Yeah, that intersection, is very busy, not only with the post office, but with Wenzel Family Plaza. So anything we can do to kind of offload and make it easier for people to drop off of their mail, we think is a good thing.
Yeah, and it's common in a lot of communities. I've had a chance to live in several of them, and most do have something similar to that. So that I think that's a good thing. Let's move on to bulky waste items. That was also discussed. And this is just really more information for the public to know what to do. That's why I'm kind of going through these a little bit different than normal. What, Dan talked about what a patron, or resident I should say, should do when they have a mattress.
Yeah, and advanced disposal would be the folks to talk to. We really have some good one-stop shopping though at our street department. Gene Warp does a wonderful job, and the staff down there, they're just excellent. If you contact them and you have an item you're trying to get rid of, they can oftentimes point you in the right direction. I was stopped by somebody the other day when I was out and about in the community who was asking about electronics. And I tried to help him to find some resources. So there are places that will take some of these for a fee, or maybe in some cases no fee, I don't know. There's also a clean sweep day coming up in the town of Saratoga on Saturday the 28th of August. I realize that that's the other end of the county, but they take a lot of materials, some of them hazardous, that you have a hard time getting rid of. So I would contact our street department if you have any questions. They will likely point you to other resources, advanced disposal being a big one. But I'd like to have you find ways to be able to get rid of those materials and those pieces of furniture and equipment and whatnot, because they do kind of clutter up your house and your garage, and you want to find a way to dispose of those properties.
Yeah, exactly, Steve. And I believe that mattresses there is no cost because if you live in the city limits. It's a little bit different if you don't. I found that out personally because I don't live in the city limits, but I believe that's part of our deal, our contract. I'm not certain, but I'm pretty certain that is. I just wanted to mention that. So don't be afraid it's going to cost you $20. I believe they do that here in the city for no cost.
Well, and that's good news. And again, don't be afraid to contact our city staff. And I mentioned that the street department is, sort of the headquarters for this type of information. We're here to serve. In many cases, we don't have the exact answer, or perhaps we don't even have anything to do with the topic per se. But we always try to point you in the right direction when we can, if you don't know where else to go.
All right. Well, we're still talking about what happened on the Public Works meeting on Monday. I have one last item that was brought up at the end, which is ATV use. I think it's going to be on our next Public Works agenda. It won't be into the council, but is there anything you can shed any light on that?
Well, ATVs are very popular, have been for quite a while, all-terrain vehicles. And there's a desire to maybe use them within city limits. And I understand that there are communities that are making that happen. They're allowing it. They may have some conditions or some restrictions in terms of the use, maybe the hours of use, or some of the roads that they're not allowed to be on. I don't know. I haven't really done any investigating of this. But this is another one of those areas, Tom, where people get frustrated with government. They don't like how we restrict everything. It's like they wake up in the morning and they wonder what we're going to tell them they can't do, right? That's the way people look at us. But that's not what we want to be about. We just want to make sure that we have safety accounted for. So there may be an opportunity. I haven't really talked to the police chief and the public works director and others yet, but there may be a way to allow ATVs on some or all of our streets, crossing our streets, that would be safe, where everybody can be protected, pedestrians, motorists, and people who are using or want to use the ATVs. So we want to be as receptive to the idea as possible. We'll be looking at health and safety like we do almost everything that comes up.
Yeah, it's getting more popular because I'll mention the word UTV. I was just out west, and almost although those are tourist towns, nothing but UTVs
right.
Going up and down and up and down. So maybe that's going to be the discussion. We'll see.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to allow people to do things like that when they can. I just hope that they bear with us as the conversation continues, because this is an important change if it happens, and it won't be done without any thought. It'll be discussed, and all the issues that we looked at, I don't think you'd expect anything less from us, because whatever comes out of it, we're all going to have to live with it.
All right. Well, less than 24 hours ago, you and I were at a finance meeting, and there's a few things I just wanted to bring up. That will be again in our consent agenda. I'm not sure if you'll pull them out at this moment, if there's any recommended actions in any of those. But for now, I just want to bring up HR generalist possible position. It's not about having a position, it's more about figuring out the pay scale and where it would fit in, correct?
Yeah, and for those who follow us regularly, Tom, and maybe come to our meetings or watch them on one of the various platforms that you make possible, they might be thinking, wait a minute, the City Hall, are we getting out of control here? We've been talking about some financial challenges. We had a tax rate increase last year. We're still dealing with the structural budget deficit that is something we have to work through in the coming years. Why are we talking about new positions? On Tuesday night, it was the HR generalist. Previously, it's been a GIS specialist working under the GIS coordinator, and also bringing on board from the another umbrella that working under Main Street, but the Wenzel Family Plaza coordinator. It's going to have a new title, event and programming coordinator, I believe. But why is the city talking about new positions? Why do we start out by sending them off to our compensation consultant? Well, we come up with ideas of things that need to be done, or we believe need to be looked at least, to further the city, to make the city better, to make the city staff more effective. And when we come up with a job description, the first thing we do after we look through it and decide it's good is we want to send it on to our compensation consultant and find out what it would cost. Now, what came up with the meeting last night with a couple of council members, Tom, is, well, wait a minute, why do we do this if we don't know if we're going to even hire somebody? Are we getting ahead of ourselves? The old chicken and egg, or is the cart before the horse, all those kind of sayings. But, these may end up in the final budget. They may not. They may end up in the budget that I recommend. They may not even make it that far. I've got a lot of things to look at in terms of what we can afford for the 22 budget, but this is part of the process to decide if we had this position, and it seems like it has merit, what would it cost us in terms of the total package that we'd have to spend on that position.
Yeah, it's planning is what it is. It's not set in stone that the position's going to happen. It would still have to go through another finance meeting anyway, and council. So again, it's pre-planning, which is always good in anything. Sometimes people think it's waste time, but generally I think it saves money and time down the road.
Yeah, it only costs $150 for us to send to the compensation consultant, and they spend some time reviewing it. They give us a report on where they think it ought to be placed if we do in fact take on the position, and then we just have to look at whether that's reasonable and come back to the committee and see what they think.
All right. Well, we've all heard COVID is starting to unfortunately ramp up around the country, even around this area a little bit. I don't want to get anybody afraid, but the discussion came up is if our staff was to be sick, right? Yep. Is there something new now that was discussed last night? Well,
Jennifer Rakey, our HR director, has sent out to city employees, Tom, a directive in terms of how we deal with things that come up. Do you find out a family member has COVID, or have you been exposed? Maybe you were at an event where someone had COVID and you've been advised to be watchful. So she put out something that says if you're vaccinated, here's some of the things, the rules that we're expecting from you. If you're not vaccinated, here's what we're expecting from you. But one of the things that's come up is when an employee is told that they need to quarantine. And we went through this earlier in the pandemic, and then of course we let some of these policies lapse by time. But what if an employee has to be has to be quarantined? Well, we really don't want to see them lose pay. Now, some people can work from home. They can telework. They've got a job where they can, have their computer and they can park in their home office and get it all done. Others don't, and so we really don't want to see employees lose pay because they simply are told they cannot work. They're not even allowed to work. So what the HR director was asking for last night, and which will go to council now, is would we allow on a temporary basis again? I think it's maybe through the end of the year or something, and then we have to revisit it. But for someone to take sick leave pay for the quarantine if they don't have any other options. Like I said, if they can't work from home, if they don't have that type of job. So I think it's good for our employees. There was a lot of discussion about it, but ultimately the committee was favorable. We'll see if the council feels the same way.
All right, Steve. Well, we'll see if that gets any discussion, or otherwise it's a good just that the public is aware that we are concerned about our staff. All right, I'm looking at my pieces here. We did touch on telework, so I don't think we need to do that. Let's talk about budget update. Ron gave a little bit of information last night about where we're at in the budget?
Yeah, July 30th, last Friday, the budgets were all due. They've been turned in to the finance director. I've gotten copies of them now as of a day or two ago. And it's time to dig in, roll up the sleeves. We had some pretty strong directives to the department heads in terms of how much they could include. We're trying to frame it to be a fairly tight budget. Last year, as you recall, we had a tax increase that was more than we normally would. That did help us to address some of our structural budget deficit. But what he's suggesting is, no more than a 2.5% increase in general fund expenses. But we've got to evaluate everything. We've got to evaluate some inflationary increases that creeped up because inflation is increasing these days. What do the revenues look like? We've taken a little bit of hit on interest. I think a lot of people watching us right now know that they're not getting a lot of interest on their bank accounts, and we're facing the same thing here. So he tried to paint the overall picture. What it really comes down to is, there's a lot more requested than we can do. And there'll be a day or two, Tom, where I'll be sitting in my office, and I'll have a red pen, and I'll have my sleeves rolled up, and I'll say, okay, we can only afford to spend another couple $100,000, and I've got $600,000 of requests. What are the priorities? What are the most important things to do? Because we got to frame something that's acceptable to the council and ultimately acceptable to the taxpayers who pay our way. But it's kind of like putting the football field down and putting the yard lines down. That's what he kind of did last night to show us what we're facing. It's not dire by any means. It's certainly a better scenario than we started with last year. But there's certainly a lot of money that's going to have to be trimmed from what department and division heads would expect or hope for to run their departments.
Let's just put a timeline to it a little bit for the public to know when this is coming down the pipe. It is August 4th.
Yep.
So this whole month, you have a lot of work.
Yeah, I do, and I'll be spending a lot of August meeting with department and division heads, with Ron, trying to fashion this. We'll give an update to the council sometime in September. We'll say, look, okay, here's kind of what we're facing, here's an update, here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then I think it's maybe the second Tuesday in October, as part of the council meeting, or maybe right before the regular council meeting, will be the presentation of the budget. And then there'll be at least 3 meetings after that on successive weeks as we try to fashion a budget to bring to public hearing in late November. Now, last year we had 4 meetings. And I think people maybe remember, if they follow us, that we had a lot of issues that we were dealing with, and spent a lot of time on trying to cut the budget. We actually cut it to lower. People don't maybe realize this because there was a tax increase, but the total amount of general fund expenses that we approved for 2021 was actually lower. The dollar amount was lower than 2020, but because of some things we're dealing with, that still had us in a difficult bind that we had to work through. So I think we made progress, but this will be interesting to watch as well, and we can only include the top priority items in the presented budget.
All right, Steve, is there anything else you wanted to mention that happened last night on?
Well, let me just talk about the budget real quick if I can.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we say this all the time. You and I have done this program now for a couple of years. Don't wait. If you've got an idea and you're watching Tom and me right now and you're thinking, I want to see that park across the street from me upgraded, please find a way to get better equipment. Or you're thinking, look, I got hit by a tax increase last year and I can't afford that kind of increase again this year. Please try to use your knife to trim more before you bring it forward, or anything in between. Call me, email me, call or write or talk to a member of the council. We want to hear from you, and the earlier the better. You can certainly give input right up to the last minute, but the earlier we get your ideas and thoughts, the more likely we are to try to figure out where the public stands and what other ideas that you might have in terms of how we tax and spend.
All right, Steve. Well, they've got the invitation to give any of us a call, and we will bring it to the attention of you or the council or a department head. Great. All right, let's move into a few more pieces. We still have a little bit of time left. I wanted to talk about more of the items that are going to be on the agenda that are maybe talked about. We have a new recreation manager starting. They're going to be introduced, and that kind of brings that back to what we used to do.
Yeah, Amanda Bruce is her name. We're so excited. She actually has ties to this area. Worked in the Park and Recreation Department a while back. Returning here from, I think, living out east, and met her the other day. She's wonderful, has a lot of enthusiasm. We were for a long time bringing people forward to introduce them at council meetings to the council and to the public. Hey, this is your new recreation director. This is your new, building inspector, whatever. And I think COVID kind of modified that a little bit. We were trying to keep as few people from being in the room as possible. But we're going to start doing that again. Amanda will be the first person, but if you're watching us right now, know that in the future you're going to see new employees brought forward so you can meet them, so to speak, get their name and get a face to go with the name, and that will help you when you contact them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's, we want to make sure that people are able to get good customer service as well.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to open containers, I believe second reading. Anything about that?
You know, we're not getting a lot of public feedback on that. I think maybe the public is at the same place that Pat Zepps, our acting police chief, is, that some of these events, if they really are the simple, quiet events like the wine walk or things of that nature, really don't pose a big threat if we allow people to be on the sidewalk, walking with a drink of some type. I know people hear that, it makes them a little bit nervous. What if we suddenly have public intoxication, or we start having people getting, a little bit out of hand? I want people to understand this is not for certain types of events. We wouldn't do this for a dance that's being held from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. or something, on the street in downtown Marshfield. This is for those events that have lower impact, lower attendance generally, and they're daytime, during a time period when it's much less likely that there'll be those types of problems. And truthfully, Tom, we've been bringing these forward on an individual basis now for a couple of years, and there hasn't been a single noteworthy problem with any of them, with anyone getting out of hand or being problematic. And I think the council will probably give its blessing to allowing the police chief to review these and approve them. If there's a problem with it, we'll bring it to the council.
Okay, that will save a step.
It will.
In the process.
It will, and some of these, we don't hear about it to the last minute, and then it's kind of a crunch to get it on the agenda right before the event. That's not our problem, but this will help expedite it.
Similar to, I don't know if it's road closures or like events.
Yeah.
Did they used to have to bring that here for council approval?
True, you're right. For closing streets, and now we routinely, things like the Halloween event and that type of incident, we take care of that without needing to go through the whole public process.
Yeah, exactly. And Steve, you probably didn't hear any, that probably went well with Hub City Days on Sunday. I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, as far as I know it did. I mean, I was out there a little bit on Saturday night. I saw a pretty good crowd at the Wenzel Family Plaza. That was good to see. But I didn't hear of any problems with either traffic or people's behavior. And it's always good to hear that too, in addition to the attendance.
Yeah. Steve, did you bring your car to the car show?
I did. I have a collector has to be 20 years old.
Yes,
right?
you're getting there.
Yeah, I'm getting there. But I don't know if anybody wants to see a 2005 Saturn, even though it's beginning to get near 2 decades of age. But they have some great cars down there, and I was there too late to see them. They'd already moved on by the time I showed up around supper time. But that's a great event.
Yeah.
And kudos to Kaylee Gomez, the Main Street Board, and all the people involved, all the many volunteers it takes to make that happen. I know I've done a little bit of volunteering there, and at 7 in the morning, people are already out there setting up what they need to for the day on Saturday. So thank you all.
Yep, and I missed it. I was on vacation, but it was planned next year.
Yeah.
Next year.
Sounds good.
Let's talk about one last thing here. I think I have one last thing. About a planning commission, it's our second reading to appoint a person, and then we now have a new one for a utility.
Yeah, and I hope people are watching because, now we've got the redistricting committee coming up, if I can touch on that real briefly. But again, I would have to be calling pretty soon here because we're trying to get that appointed. But periodically, we have either permanent standing committees or some special committee that might be for a limited time. And we put it out there. Keep an eye out for what you see on 991, but also, in the news as far as the radio and TV, our website, Facebook, our other platforms, because we're trying to get the public involved. You and I talk about this all the time. So we do have someone who's likely to be appointed to the Planning Commission, and Melissa should come on board this month. But we are looking for a commission member on the utilities, and I think they have until early September to submit their information. You don't have to be real formal, just maybe email or something. Who are you? What's your background? Is there anything that would lend yourself to being a good candidate for utilities? They do the electric and water here in town. But as you see these, please jump in. Please contact us. If you see something that looks interesting to you, maybe you're interested in parks. Well, Park and Recreation might have an opening someday. We want to get as many people involved in city government as we possibly can.
Well, exactly. Please let me know what we can do to help get that information out about boards, commissions, and committees, because I know the council, about 3 months ago, Tom Witzel requested that our communications department stays on top of that at least twice a year. I'm looking at options of building a book, but ultimately, this is for you, the public. I need to hear from you of what you want. I don't want to do something that's just going to get put on a shelf and sit there. What are you hoping? Maybe you're hoping for an open house of more explanation of what government's about? I don't know. That's what we want to hear from you. That will make it an easier process for you to maybe want to do this or know more about it before you get involved. We're gladly to help you with that one-on-one, or possibly we need to have more information out there for you to receive. I just need a call, or give Steve a call, and we'll gladly help. Again, 715-486 2070, that's mine. You're 2003, right?
Correct.
So 486-2003, direct there. I mean, and you can leave a message. Don't be afraid. A lot of times we're out. Leave a message, and we will return your call.
We'll definitely get back to you. If I can put on a short plug, as I started to, for the redistricting committee. This is, I mean, we are looking to bring candidates to the council for consideration on Tuesday night, August 10th. So I realize it's kind of short, but if you're seeing this in advance of the meeting, what happens is we get the data from the county, from the 2000 census, and as a result of that, we might see more people living in one part of the city, fewer people in another part. We need to have a group together to recommend moving the lines as necessary to make sure that there's just roughly the same number of residents in each district, so that if you're in the council on District 7 or District 10 or District 4, you're representing about the same number of people. And the council decided at their last meeting on July 27th that they wanted 3 council members and 2 citizens on this committee. So if you're listening and you're able to throw your hat in the ring, so to speak, give me a holler as soon as possible.
Steve, did you mention a kind of a deadline that they have to do, or we got some time?
At 4:30 on Tuesday, August 10th. So hopefully this gets out there on the various platforms in the next day or two. People can see it, and just by 4:30 on Tuesday, let me know with an email or a phone call that you're interested in serving on the redistricting committee, and I'll make sure that your name's in the hopper that night so that they're aware of your interest.
All right. Anything else? We went longer than we thought.
Yeah, well, I guess I would just say that, we're moving into the budget season, so that'll start to be king of the hill here for the next couple of months. This is a little bit of a quiet time. A lot of second readings of ordinances coming up on Tuesday night, but look for a lot more of Tom and I covering what's in the budget, what's proposed, and again, we want your feedback and your comments, because the citizens are the ones that we're here to work for, and we need to know what you're thinking.
That's well put, Steve. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it on this show. I enjoy doing this every couple weeks, and let us know what you like or dislike. We're open to any of your suggestions. That's why we're here. We work for the public and understand that we need to do what's best. So I'm going to sign off. Anything I guess that's about it, right?
Just maybe a plug for the other half of this equation, and that's that usually the day after the council meeting on Wednesdays, we do a post-council meeting news conference, and you do a great job of running that, and so watch for that too, so you see the results of the items that we talk about on council preview.
Yeah, exactly. It's a quick wrap up. All right, well, we're going to wrap up here, and we'll see you, the beginning of this month, so in another 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
All right, thanks again for watching us on Council Preview.